And I got into this opening, a field area, and there's bodies all over the place. And I see a guy in a foxhole very close by. And I said, "Hey, where's your wire team?" He says, "You're looking at them."
You are about to embark upon the great crusade
to meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
I know it sounds silly now at my age. I was only 18 years old. I was so mad at the Japanese that I wanted to get back at them. And from all I read and heard and everything, the only one that did any of the fighting were the Marines. And the Marines were fighting in the Pacific. And they had landed on Guadalcanal by that time. And so I figured, by God, if you want to fight the Japs, because they're the Germans hadn't gotten in, we didn't get into the Germans yet, but we were involved with the Japanese, and I was pretty mad at the Japs for dropping the bombs and so on. I was bound and determined I was going to get back at them. That's why I joined the Marine Corps. When you're first starting, you have no idea what it's like or what's going to happen. They explain it to us, but I found out in the Marines they tell you what the battle plan is, what your O1 objective is, and so on. Where the Army, they don't know. Okay, so we got all this information, and it seems that on the Marshalls, the two big islands were Roy and Namur. Roy was with the airstrips, and Namur was where they stored all the stuff in the living quarters, etc. And then there were a bunch of islands that were smaller than those islands, but they still had Japs on them. So they broke up the 25th, and the 1st Battalion had this one, the 2nd Battalion had this one, and the 3rd Battalion had this one. And I was in the 3rd Battalion, and we were right off the shore of Namur. We hit that island, and boy, we were ready. We covered that island. There wasn't a Jap on the island, living or dead. And boy, were we surprised. And that led to a lot of laughing and stuff. And we watched them. We were a day ahead. So we watched them land. The 24th landed on Namur, and we watched the whole battle. It was very interesting. We went back to our rest base, and by, well, don't hold me to this, but the end of March, beginning of April, we shoved off again. We were on our way, and we didn't know where we were going. This time we were going to Saipan. And I was in the second wave in the first one. Now we go to Saipan. I was in an outfit called JASCO, Joint Assault Signal Company. I was a wireman and switchboard operator. And so I was designated in the next few battles as a switchboard operator with my buddy and so on. So we landed on Saipan on the 15th of June. We went right in and everything, and we set up. Our job was to set up a switchboard and attach all the units to it so that they all had command of their area. And the guys that handled the dump, I can't think of his name right offhand, like the medical supplies, food, ammo, etc., was given a wire so that he could call if he needed any. And then there was a shore party commander. He was Navy. He knew what was in all the cargo ships out there. He evidently had a book or something. And if the beachmaster needed supplies, he would call the shore party commander and say, "We're running out of mortar ammunition, you better get some in." The shore party commander knew what cargo ship it was on, and they'd call him, tell him, "Hey, we need 40 millimeter or 60 millimeter or whatever it was, mortar ammo, better send it in. And then he told them what beach to bring it into. And that's what we did for the first few days. And after that, I'd say maybe 3 days, 4 days, all the companies took over their own communications. We were just set up to get them started. And so we went in with the assault waves in each one. And it was on Saipan. But we were up a ways, and all of a sudden we ran into some fields where they were growing stuff, and there were railroad tracks. And it was a little small railroad. I don't know what to call them, like a miniature railroad. But there were tracks there. And it led over here, and there was a big cave there, and there was a big thing about getting people out there, but that's not important. So anyhow, we went up the tracks. That night, when we stopped, 4th Division always stopped at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, it didn't get dark until 9. That gave us 5 hours to set up our defenses, and boy, did we set them up. And do you know that at no time in any battle that I was in, right through Iwo Jima, as many times as we were attacked, singly, doubly, or banzai attack, they never broke through. And we had 50s on the side, 30 machine guns, and 30s in the middle, and BARs along the sides here, and then in between were riflemen. And right in back of them was your 60 millimeter mortars. And boy, I'll tell you, when the Japs hit, we let them have it. Oh, we put barbed wire out there, and when we had them, we'd hook plates, tin plates, or anything to make noise on the wires. And when in the night, when Japs hit the wires, we'd call out to the destroyer, and they started putting the flares out, and boy, it was just like daylight up there. And of course, the Japs were wide open there, and our machine guns just opened up. And February 19, we landed on Iwo Jima. Oh, Lordy day, that was something. I had the switchboard, and they had a candle on each side, and it weighed 75 pounds. I'm a little guy. All right, I put that down and start to run up the beach. You don't run, walking rapidly. And my knees kept hitting it, you know, and that's crazy. What do you think I did? I took it and put it up on top of my helmet, because it would ride very easy on my head. And I ran up to me. Can you imagine me landing on the beach with the switchboard on my head, and the Japs looking and saying, "What's that? That looks important." Boom, they're going to shoot me. Never got a thing. I never got shot. I never got even missed. Nothing came close. I had the switchboard, as I say, and so my buddy and I, the other guy that was the operator, we went up. There were 5 levels of the beach, and we went up the first one, and so we went up the second one, and there's a big shell hole there. It must have been from a battleship or something. And we said, "This is it." And we went right down to the bottom, and we set up our switchboard and said to the guys, "Okay, send us the wires." And that's what they did, and we eventually hooked up all the wires. And we had to hook with our left flank, which was the 26th Marines, because we were the end unit. And then, at the end of the day and everything, we got a report that we were the 3rd Battalion. Next to us, we were Yellow Beach 1. Yellow Beach 2 was the 2nd Battalion, and they hadn't heard from him. And so my buddy now was the switchboard operator, and it sounds like I was some hotshot. I wasn't, but I wasn't scared because I had no close calls or anything. And so I said, "I'll go." And I did. And I just walked down to where they're supposed to be. And I got into this opening, a field area, and there's bodies all over the place. And I see a guy in a foxhole very close by. And I said, "Hey, where's your wire team?" He says, "You're looking at them." They had come off the LCVP, and the shell landed right in amongst them. Killed them all. So they lost their whole wire team. So I said, "Well, where did the switchboard go?" And he says, "I don't know, I have to look around." He says, "Probably over in that section here." And I did look around, I found it. And again, put it up on my head and walked back, and I said, "Look, when somebody comes down to find out what's happened to communication, tell them that the 3rd Battalion has their switchboard, and we'd be glad to give it back. But in the meantime, bring your wires in and we'll set up your program." And they did. And then pretty soon they came and got it. At one point, I had finished, I had noon to midnight, and we worked 12-hour shifts on the switchboard. So I had the noon to midnight, and my buddy had the midnight to noon. I had finished my day, so to speak, at midnight, and I crawled up the side of this big hole we were in, and a bunch of guys who were running all day, setting up the lines were out there and everything. I don't think I was up there half an hour, and my buddy says, "K Company's out," and that meant that why something happened to the wire. Either the Japs cut it, or the shell landed on, or damn tanks. I'm glad to getting rid of it because the tanks used to wind up our wires. But anyhow, so K Company was out. So the lieutenant is up there and he says, "Okay, who hasn't been out today?" And I don't know why, but all the eyes of these guys landed on me. Because I had been down on the switchboard. So I said, "Yeah, okay, I know it's my turn, I'll go." But we learned in Guadalcanal and Gloucester and some of the early jobs, you can't send a wireman out by himself, because the Japs would cut the line and wait for somebody out to fix it, and he's so busy doing that, they'd shoot him, because he didn't. So now we send 2 people out. The one guy is a wireman, and his only job is to fix that wire. And then there's a shotgun, that's what they called him, that went with him. 2 guys were now. His only job was to protect the wireman. And he kept looking around as they moved up. He didn't care where you were going. He had to go where the wireman went. And he protected the wireman. So I said, "Okay, who's riding shotgun with me?" And they all looked around. And all of a sudden they looked at the lieutenant. And he said, "Okay, I know, it's my turn. I'll go, no problem." And we all said, "What if he could do that in the Army?" Anyhow, he went with me. I said, "Now don't forget," because also the guy that was riding shotgun had to get extra wire. And he had to take a lot of wire out, and he just put it over his shoulder there, and to take it with him. And then he had his rifle, of course. And I was going out to K Company and so on. And we found the break. And so I said to the lieutenant, I said, "You sit right here and don't go away, and I'll find the other end." And I was on my hands and knees around there. This is now around between 12 and 1 o'clock at night. And got this wire. I went out, I finally found it. And I spliced, this is midnight. This is why we practiced in the dark. But I had to make this splice, so I had to prepare for splicing, and I took the extra wire with me when I went. And I spliced it in, and I got the wire, and he didn't bring enough. And so I got there, and I saw where he was, but I had quite a bit of wire I was missing, and I went over and I said, you know, you didn't bring enough wire. And he just looked at me, and he said, okay, I'll go get it. And he did, and came back. Well, now, I'm there on my haunches, right? All of a sudden, it was just a light and a boom, and it was practically took me off the ground. And boy, I went down real quick. It didn't hit me, and nothing hit me. But I went down there, and my ears were ringing, I'll tell you. And what the heck is going on? I lay there a minute, nothing else happened. I went through the bit of you try your toes, your ankles, your feet, your knees, your fingers, etc. Okay, I was fine. I get back up on my haunches to start trying to find where I was, and I could hear laughing. And I thought, oh boy, this really must got me. Laughing out in the middle of a battlefield? And about 10 feet away or so, through the night, I could see this wall. And then I just stared at it for a while, and all I could see is at the top of the wall, these arms. There's a whole bunch of guys there watching me, and they're laughing. I was sitting right under the muzzle of a 105 artillery piece, and we fired. It was outgoing, not incoming. That's why it's this color.